The night was calm, with nothing but the sound of crickets filling the quiet farmland. Emily, a soft-spoken young woman, who preferred the company of her horses and the open fields, never imagined danger would find its way to her doorstep. She had always been the quiet girl everyone overlooked, the one who never raised her voice, never caused trouble, and never asked for attention. But that quietness, to some people, made her an easy target. 3 men from the nearby town had been watching her for weeks. They were troublemakers, men who thrived on cruelty and intimidation. They thought Emily was defenseless, a farm girl living alone most of the time, while her husband worked long hours away. What they didn't know was that her husband, Daniel, was not just any man. He was a highly trained Delta Force operative, a soldier who had faced war zones and rescued hostages from some of the most dangerous places in the world. But tonight, they believed Emily was vulnerable, and they decided to strike. It started with a knock at the barn door. Emily thought it was just a neighbor. She smiled softly, brushing hay off her jeans, and opened the door. In an instant, a hand clamped over her mouth, and she was dragged outside. Her scream was muffled as the men bound her hands and shoved her into the back of their truck. Her eyes widened in terror, but her heart wasn't just filled with fear. It was filled with something else. She thought of Daniel. She thought of the promise he once made to her. "As long as I'm alive, no one will ever hurt you." Back at the house, Daniel had just pulled into the driveway after an early return from deployment. He stepped out of his truck with his duffel bag slung over his shoulder, expecting to see Emily in the kitchen window, waiting for him with that shy smile she always had. But the house was too quiet. He noticed the barn door swinging slightly open, the ground disturbed by fresh tire tracks. Instantly, his instincts sharpened. He knew something was terribly wrong. Daniel rushed inside, calling out Emily's name, but no response came. His chest tightened. He scanned the room, saw the broken lamp near the door, and then his heart dropped. Emily was gone. His training kicked in immediately. He ran back to his truck, following the fresh tracks that led away from the farm. Every muscle in his body burned with determination. He wasn't just a soldier now. He was a husband fighting for the love of his life. Meanwhile, in the back of the kidnapper's truck, Emily tried to stay calm. Her wrists hurt from the ropes, and fear coursed through her. But she remembered Daniel's words, his strength, and the countless times he told her she was stronger than she believed. Even tied up, Emily refused to break. The men dragged her into an old abandoned barn outside town, laughing at her quiet tears. "Nobody's coming for you," one sneered. "You're all alone out here." But Emily shook her head. "You're wrong," she whispered. "He's coming." And she was right. Daniel had already found their trail. He parked a mile out, moving silently through the fields like a shadow. His heart pounded, but his mind was focused. Years of training came back to him in seconds. Every sound, every movement, every breath became part of his plan. Inside, the men grew careless. They underestimated Emily and had no idea who they were up against. Suddenly, the barn door burst open. Daniel stormed in, his presence like a force of nature. His voice was cold, controlled, but filled with fury. "Step away from my wife." The bullies froze. They laughed nervously at first, thinking he was just a farmer. But the look in Daniel's eyes told a different story. Within seconds, Daniel moved with lightning speed. He disarmed the first man with a single strike, sending him crashing to the ground. The second rushed forward, but Daniel twisted his arm and dropped him flat. The third, realizing too late who he was dealing with, tried to run. But Daniel caught him, pinning him against the wall with one hand. "You thought she was defenseless." Daniel growled, his voice steady. "You thought wrong." Emily's eyes filled with tears, not of fear, but of relief. Daniel untied her gently, holding her close as the men groaned on the ground around them. For the first time that night, Emily allowed herself to breathe. She was safe. The police arrived minutes later, called by neighbors who heard the commotion. The bullies were taken away in handcuffs, their arrogance shattered. One of the officers recognized Daniel and shook his head. They picked the wrong man's wife to mess with. Back home, as the sun began to rise, Emily and Daniel sat together on the porch. Her hands trembled slightly, but Daniel held them firmly. "I was so scared," she admitted softly. "But I knew you'd come." Daniel kissed her forehead. "No matter where I am, no matter what it takes, I'll always come for you." And in that moment, Emily realized something powerful. The world might see her as the quiet farm girl, but she was far from weak. She was married to a man who would face any danger for her. But more importantly, she had found her own strength in the darkest moment of her life. The message of their story was clear. True love isn't just about words. It's about sacrifice, about courage, and about never giving up on the people who matter most.